Hello, everybody. Vasi Vadaparty here, coming up on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Our sports attorney, Daniel Lust, will join us in a few minutes to talk all the things going on legally, sports-wise, and maybe a little San Francisco Giants as well, too. Casey Freelove, Charlie O on assignment today. They'll be back with us on Thursday and Friday of this week, so a solo show for me today. You can check us out every Monday, Thursday, Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, right here on Facebook Live. Stables Media YouTube page, as well as my YouTube page. Download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast if you happen to miss out any of the live broadcasts. An early baseball game today. Let's update that. Boston Red Sox split the series with the Chicago White Sox. 11-4 they win on Patriots Day. The Red Sox get 6 in the top of the first and bottom of the first and cruise. Patriots Day in Boston with the Boston Marathon taking place. The top 5 hitters in the Red Sox lineup before they got an out. They had already scored 6 runs. The Red Sox hitters 13 of 23, 10 runs scored, 5 RBIs. Nathan Eovaldi improves to 3-1. He went 6 1/3 innings, 11-4. It got so bad for the White Sox. Tony La Russa, the big series against Cleveland, want to blow the bullpen out. And so he used the star rookie, Marin Mercedes. Mercedes, the designated hitter, potential rookie of the year candidate, came in to pitch the last inning and a half for the White Sox. So they didn't have a DH for the last inning and a half, but it was 11-4 by that time. White Sox had their chances. They took a 1-0 lead, but then the Red Sox got the first 5 guys on. I don't know if it was the 11 a.m. start for the White Sox that threw them off a little bit, but they lose to the Boston Red Sox, who are in first place, surprisingly. Not sure a lot of people had the Boston Red Sox in first place at this late of the stage in April. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live. Send us any comments you have to mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. You can always reach us on Facebook. Send your comments and drop any questions you have regarding any of the baseball, the NBA, anything going on in terms of sports right now and sports wagering. We have some big things going on right now as far as the Major League Baseball scenario goes. Some of the MLB notes from the weekend. St. Louis and Washington both struggling right now. They open up a series tonight. Jack Flaherty will go up against Joe Ross. Joe Ross beat them last week when the Cardinals were hosting Washington last Wednesday afternoon. San Francisco lost 2 out of 3 to the Marlins over the weekend, blew a couple of leads, including the Saturday night one was a big one. They go to Philadelphia, who's playing really well right now. Philadelphia with a 2 out of 3 series win over the St. Louis Cardinals. The Milwaukee Brewers will go into San Diego tonight. San Diego lost 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers. Milwaukee won 2 out of 3. They come into San Diego. Brandon Woodruff having a great year for the Brewers. He's going to go up against Mr. No-Hitter, Joe Musgrove, tonight. Tampa Bay, Kansas City. Tampa Bay swept the Yankees in New York. I did not know this until I heard it yesterday. I probably should have known this, but Tampa Bay has won 9 straight series over the New York Yankees, not including the American League Division Series last year. That's something to be noted for. And Tampa Bay has gotten off to a tough start this year. And the Yankees have the worst record in the American League. And Garrett Cole, even with Garrett Cole on the mound, who pitched well, they could not get out of their own way. Jay Bruce announced his retirement. What a great career he had, 309 home runs for the Yankees, but he just wasn't doing it at first base. They're without Luke Voigt right now. He's on the injured list. Of course, my Dodgers, again, the worst part of the show, the worst part of the segment is the LA Dodgers, and my homer is towards them. The Dodgers took 2 out of 3 from San Diego in San Diego. They've beaten the Padres quite a bit over the last few years. I don't know. Some people think it's still a rivalry. Bench is cleared on Friday night. Bench is cleared on Saturday as well, too. Trevor Bauer pitched well for 6 innings, but the Padres came back, took the third game of the series yesterday, 5-2. Dodgers win 2 out of 3 versus the Padres. And have you heard about the Minnesota Twins lately? The Minnesota Twins got their games postponed in Anaheim on Saturday and Sunday due to contact tracing. They're checking them for COVID-19 protocols. And so with that scenario taking place, the Minnesota Twins have canceled their game with the Oakland A's tonight. They'll be postponed to a doubleheader tomorrow. The Twins' last 2 games were postponed. Chicago, Cleveland, Toronto, Boston, all start big series. All right, we said our guest, thanks to Robbie, Kepler returns to Phillies. Gabe Kapler going back into Philadelphia as the Giants manager tonight. So as we said, Daniel Lust, the sports attorney from the Garagos firm, is on with us right now. He'll be coming on in a second. We'll talk some legalese as well as a little San Francisco Giants baseball. And there he is right now. Welcome in Daniel Lust, sports attorney at Garagos Law Firm. He also has the podcast Conduct Detrimental. You can reach him on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Law Lust and the podcast at Con Detrimental. It is always a pleasure. It's a solo act today, Dan. No Charlie, no Casey. So it's just you and I today talking. What hell are we going to raise today? Welcome in, Daniel Lust.
Thank you, Vasu, for having me. Can I tell you something? When I woke up today, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cover everything about the Super League. That's the legal issue that's going to take over all things social media. No, I did not expect that. And on a day, Vasu, where we have pretty big Deshaun Watson updates, we had an Aaron Donald story that's still kind of making its way through with the assault charges. So, yeah, there's a lot of hell that's being raised. I'm happy to bring the hell to the show because the hell is definitely permeating my life right now.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't have hell. We can't have hell without lawyers because lawyers have to keep the hell going depending on what side of the bar you're on, or regulated depending on the other side of the bar.
I'm not offended by that by any means, or we can be like the Stone Cold Steve Austin. We could just raise hell. I like that one too.
All right. As I said, Daniel Lust, you can get him at Sports Law Lust. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live. Vasu Vadaparty here, Charlie O, Casey Freelove wanted to be on, but they're on assignment today, so we'll have them on later in the week. And Daniel's been a frequent guest, so I think he can handle me by himself. If he's handled some of the better lawyers, he can handle me by himself. All right, you mentioned it, the Deshaun Watson case. So here's my take on this. The reason I invited you on is because clearly there's an S show going on here on top of it. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist to begin with, but part of me, like maybe 1% of me or 2% of me thinks with all the talk of him wanting to be traded and everything like that, do you in the back of your mind, thinking all possibilities, do you think the Texans have anything to do with this from the scam? Not the legal part of it with the women and all that, but as far as making this public, making them and trying to make him look like a bad guy in terms of like, no, you have a contract with us, you just signed an extension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now this case comes in and now he's damaged goods. There's not a team in the NFL that's going to trade for him right now.
Do I think the Texans were involved? There was a part of me that initially thought that because the timing was a little odd. And then,
yes,
once, and obviously it's fun to have a conspiracy theory. It's fun to sometimes put on the tinfoil hat. But when you really break down we'll say just the pure evidence, right? It doesn't have to be a lawyer to kind of do an investigation here. There are, obviously you hit on it. There's a contract extension that was signed in September of 2020, which basically took the Texans' obligation to him and extended it until 2025 and guaranteed him almost $111 million. Now, it gets a little messy if you have some type of off-field issue, not necessarily guaranteed. You might have to give some of that back. That said, some of these allegations predate that extension. There are allegations, I believe I read the complaints and I looked at the timeline. I believe there are 9 of these 23, or it's 22, I think at this point, with one being dismissed, that involve allegations that occurred prior to that extension. So if you really think the Texans knew, they'd have been insane to give him that contract extension. Absolutely insane if they really thought this was looming. Now, who is saying that the Texans knew? It's not just social media. Tony Busby is the victim's attorney. When I say he doesn't represent all the victims, but all of the victims that have filed civil lawsuits have the same attorney.
But she sure is front and center, though. I'll give him that.
He is. But he is making this claim that we might bring the Texans into these lawsuits if the Texans knew ahead of time and they knew that Watson had these propensities. Maybe they had a duty to warn people, right? And maybe they should have done something. He's the one that's drumming up interest in the case, but I don't know. I don't buy that the Texans had knowledge of that. You want to know why, Vasu? But above and beyond the extension, there were reportedly trades that were on the table to get rid of him. And the Texans publicly or behind closed doors, said he's not on the table. He's not for sale. We're not listening to offers. So if they knew about it and they gave him that extension, they would love to send him away from town and get some return on their investment. I think he's a nuclear asset at this point. So it would be crazy if the Texans were the ones that created this firestorm.
Well, my opinion on that is I think that there might have been something out there, and I think that the Texans, maybe they didn't realize how big a thing this was going to be with all these women coming out, and the fact that some of these names have made public. Now, I had not heard that one got dismissed. What was the reason for the one that got dismissed?
It's not confirmed, but at least if you following the news, it was an order that required all of the women to refile their complaints with their public names. And to the extent that you didn't do that and you don't file a court order, you risk dismissal, really at any type of court order. So there was a deadline to provide their names, and one didn't provide their name, and that was the one that was dismissed. So you can use your imagination as to why that got dismissed.
All right, so let's continue on here with this. Our guest, Daniel Lust, sports attorney with the Garagos Law Firm. can reach him at Sports Law Lust on Instagram and Twitter as well. And his podcast is great, Conduct Detrimental at Condetriment on the podcasting sites, anywhere you get your podcast. In regards to, I don't know what to make of this guy Busby, because it just seemed like it was a lot of it was show. I would think that maybe he didn't know about all these women coming in, but to me, it's just grandstanding to go one day at a time and bring up a new name or bring up a new claimant. He didn't mention the names in the beginning, but to mention the names, go day by day for a 3-week period. To me, in the beginning, it seemed like he was just getting out there to get his name out there. And then Rusty Hardin, who's represented every player in Texas, every Texas related sports person. Rusty Hardin has, from Roger Clemens all the way to today with Deshaun Watson. I just don't understand what the strategy is for Tony Busby to go out there every day and say, oh, here's a new one for Deshaun Watson. Here's a new one for Deshaun Watson. Obviously, we know that there's more than that. But to go out and do it individually just seems like grandstanding to me.
I mean, grandstanding is the right. I mean, I call it like I see it, right? This is a guy, and I'll push back on one sense. I understand why someone would do that. I understand why someone would go, here's a news update. I'm going to have another press conference. I'm going to go on Instagram Live. I'm going to go on Facebook Live. I get why someone would do that. Someone would do that to put an immense amount of pressure on Deshaun Watson to potentially settle the case, to make these go away, and to probably pay more than they would to make these disappear. That's it's happened in sports. It's happened probably behind the scenes that we'll never know about. The problem on the other end of this, this is the part which doesn't necessarily make sense. I get why someone would want to litigate a case in the press. Busby's been very clear, which I don't know if I believe him, but he's saying it outwardly. This case is not about money. It's not about money. It's about setting an example. Now, last I checked, Vasu, filing a civil lawsuit is about money. It doesn't matter if the lawyer says it's not about money. That's what you're trying to collect at the end of the day, money. And there's nothing wrong with filing a civil lawsuit. Civil lawsuits are filed all the time in our country, but don't question the intelligence of the country by saying it's not about money, but if we win, we're going to get some money on this thing. So I don't really buy that, number one. But number two, what's the strategy of just every day saying there's another press conference? I don't know. He's drumming up a lot of attention in the case. And Vasu, this case, and I'll give Tony Busby credit. Obviously, if you read his bio, he's settled $2 billion of cases, or between trials and verdicts is $2 billion. And if he's working off a contingency, Vasu, I'm going to tell you that's a lot of money. And
that's a lot of money. Yeah, no doubt.
I follow Busby on Instagram. He's got horses. He's got looks like private planes. The guy's got a lot of stuff. He ran for mayor of Houston back in 2019 with a lot of private funding. So Busby is good at one thing. At least he's good at one thing, at least as far as I'm aware of, is bringing clients to the firm. So why would one want to say a new update on Watson every single day? Because this case went from one accuser to 4 to 6 to 9 to 12, and now to a point where over 20. So that's why he's doing it. But I can't tell you from a strategic standpoint, if you're not trying to settle these cases and you're not bringing the case to the police department until 3 weeks into the civil cases, I don't know what the logic was behind litigating the case in the press every single day. Sure, you're setting an example, but maybe you're potentially risking public sentiment in the case if your lawyer's going out here and kind of giving these half lies or white lies, whatever you want to call it. But it might be undermining his client's case if he's getting called on different credibility issues.
That's my point, because I'm trying to figure out exactly what his strategy is, because it just seems like the grandstanding part of it. I know it's about money. I think any intelligent person, any half-brain person, even me, could figure out that it's about money, regardless of what the scenario is, because Deshaun Watson clearly has the extension. He's got the money, and I don't know if any of these women are absolutely going for it or not, but it seems like some of these women have been emotionally scarred to the point that I hate to say that the attorney is using them for the contingency fees. They're going to get something out of it, but it seems like some of these women were really damaged women. All right, let me switch it over a little bit here from Rusty Hardin's side. How do you defend against somebody coming at you every day with a different name? And from that standpoint too, I would assume that Rusty Hardin would have to defend him in a criminal sense. Has there been any criminal sense in terms of some of these women charging him in a criminal court as opposed to civil litigation that you know of?
So at least as far as I know, there have been 5 police reports that have been filed by individuals associated with Tony Busby. There have been no criminal charges filed. And sometimes you have a civil defense lawyer and you can have a criminal defense lawyer. I don't know if Harden's going to do both. I have not heard that one way or the other. But as far as I'm aware, as of today, and again, this is an ongoing story, things are subject to change, but there have been no criminal criminal charges that have been filed. There's a little bit of it confusing if you're not on Twitter and you're not paying attention that closely. There's something called a criminal complainant. That just basically means someone that filed a police report. So there have been criminal complaints that have been filed, but the DA has not yet signed off on bringing formal charges. Now, Vasu, you'll know when criminal charges are filed, A, because Twitter will explode, and you'll see them on timeline, number one. But number two, that's probably the earliest.
You might be the most honest lawyer I've ever met, to say that out loud.
Being honest. But Watson, if people are wondering when a suspension will come, the day that the criminal charges are filed, if he's not already suspended at that point, it's going to come pretty quickly. Just like Vasu, what we saw, within 24 hours of the victims speaking and publicly giving their names, that's when Nike dropped Deshaun Watson as a sponsor. Same with Beats by Dre. Same thing with criminal charges. The NFL has a very low bar to suspending players. Criminal charges basically require the DA to think, hey, I can get a guilty verdict by proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which, it's something like 90%, confidence. That's what a jury, something like that. 90, 95, it's a lot. There's no real number, but that's what kind of you're taught. Now, civil charges, in order to be found culpable, it's something like a coin flip. It's something called beyond a preponderance of the evidence. So again, there's no real numbers on it, but think about it like 51%. If you weigh all the evidence and it weighs more towards Watson committing these civil charges, you find him culpable. So yeah, if civil charges don't really necessarily move the needle for the NFL, a criminal charges being brought, that's going to tell you that an independent third body, the DA's office, thinks that they can get a conviction by 90%. The NFL is going to follow, I would think, very quickly after that.
So let me see if I understand this. So no actual criminal charges have been filed by the DA, but there have been complaints based on the incidents that have taken place by the complaints of some of these women that said that these things have happened. And so these are the complaints, and the police reports have been filed, but no actual charges have been filed by the DA against Deshaun Watson by any of these women. Am I right in that?
That's correct. It's a fancy way of saying that there's a cooperating witness for the police. If they want to bring forward charges, they have seemingly people that are ready to stand by and help them prosecute the case. Prior to these 5 criminal police reports being filed, Tony Buzbee, and this is, Vasu, probably to your point, why the public is a little, skeptical of Tony Buzbee, he basically was not having police reports filed for the first 2-3 weeks of this case. So a lot of pressure to Watson, not giving any names, not allowing Watson to defend the case, not giving it to the police department. So I'm just kind of calling it like I see it. If you feel very confident in a case, and very confident in a criminal conviction, that's again a 90-ish%, there's no downside to giving it to the police. You might hold it back if you're worried that the police aren't going to take it, in which case that kind of does hurt the case in a different sense in the court of public opinion.
If there are no criminal charges filed, what kind of, you said it's a 51-49% from the civil complaints. Do you think there's a lot of meat on the bone, I guess is the best way to put it, from the civil complaints if there are no criminal charges filed?
I mean, it's not going to. The truth is, it's going to hurt the case in the court of public opinion. They're going to ask, why didn't the DA's office take the case? It's a fair question. But as we saw right in the OJ context, even if you're found innocent, let's say, for OJ, there were criminal charges that were filed. It was a full trial, and he was found not guilty. Now, he was still found culpable or liable on the civil case. So yeah, it's not going to really impact the substantive nature of the charges.
Vasu Vatapart with you, Charlie O. Casey Freelove on assignment today. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast, talking a little legalese with our sports attorney, Daniel Lust of the Garagos Law Firm. Conduct Detrimental is his podcast. You can reach him at Sports Law Lust on Twitter and Instagram, and also Conduct Detrimental. All right, enough to Deshaun Watson for right now. Let's move on. Obviously, he said we may get into the Super League now. With no Casey and Charlie here, it's all freewheeling, so we might get into that here a little bit. Let's talk about Aaron Donald a little bit. Apparently, there was a little mistaken identity going on last week, and some guy got beat to hell by Aaron Donald's people. At first, everybody thought it was Aaron Donald to beat him when this 3 o'clock in the morning nightclub incident happened. And then this came across the wire today that Alden Smith, I guess, has a warrant for his arrest out in New Orleans for battery on somebody that apparently he got in a fight with on Saturday night. It's the Seattle Seahawks just signed him I think on Friday, and he was out celebrating on Saturday. And all his legal problems from the past and all his alcohol problems and everything. Hopefully, as a person, he's doing better. But this does not look good for Aldon Smith from the sake of having a battery charge and then not, and then I don't know if he's fleeing. Is he on the run? What do you know about this so far?
See, Vasu, this is why it's great the show is live, because I am so knee deep in Super League stuff that I am aware of the story that existed. I have not been digging into it. The Super League stuff is crazy. We should talk about Super League. I'll give you the whole deal on this.
Well, let me ask you your opinion on Aaron Donald, then. I'll take you off the hook of Aldon Smith. Let me ask you Aaron Donald. What'd you make of the Aaron Donald case last week?
I might be the most honest lawyer because I was not going to bullshit you on that. I have not been.
I know you were.
Can I say bullshit on the show? Is that okay?
Absolutely. There's no FCC around here.
Well, I thought there wasn't, but then you said an S show, and I don't know what an S show is. I know what a shit show is.
Well, it's a shit show. Yeah, it's a shit show. It is.
I'm unclear what an S show is, but so
you can use that in a brief sometime.
I will. Well, I probably just would not say that. I would say it would be a cluster F.
Yes, there you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. On our next episode of Make the Money and Run, Daniel Lusk comes up with acronyms on how to attack jurors and clients in the courtroom.
I'll give you the Aaron Donald one for football fans. This one I think they find very fascinating. So this is basically a masterclass in just making sure innocent until proven guilty is abided by. With Watson, it's a little tough because there's a lot of evidence coming out, but people have been the court of public opinion has convicted them. And then they've got off on charges, be it Casey Lee Anthony, be it OJ. It's happened a lot. So, you don't want to say that someone's convicted just because everyone assumes that they are guilty. So Deshaun Watson has his issues. Aaron Donald, it came across my radar. It was a picture of appeared to be an alleged victim with a kind of if anyone's Basil, have you seen the movie Hitch?
Yeah, I have with the allergies. Yeah, one eye closed. I've seen a lot of boxers look like that too.
Yes. So his eye is very big. It looks like someone kicked him or punched him in the eye, and
he looks like Popeye with the one eye closed.
Looks like Popeye with the one eye closed. That also works as well. Someone was beat up pretty badly, and he was alleging that Aaron Donald did this, and that he by accident bumped into Aaron Donald was his lawyer's statement, and then Aaron Donald attacked him. So Aaron Donald's lawyer, I believe on Friday, kind of came out and said, "Hey, we have surveillance video, and surveillance video shows that this did not occur as the victim is saying it did. And we'll show you the video." So the video comes out. The video is of some people beating up Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is in the video, but at least according to Aaron Donald's lawyer, he gives a fuller picture. What happened was at some point, this individual, this alleged victim, according to Donald's version, took a swing at Donald with a bottle. And Donald's team, I'm saying team or posse, his friends, whatever you want to call it, his group attacked this individual as a response to him trying to attack Donald. Donald was not involved. So once that video came out, this alleged quote-unquote victim basically apologized, said Aaron was not involved and I apologize. Now, Vasu, here's the interesting part. It doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't have a case. It means that he sued the wrong person because there are other people in the video, and Aaron Donald might be called as a witness to testify as to who was beating him up. It looks like there was a pile of people kicking this guy in the face. It's got really messy.
Wow, it's just an interesting. I mean, how do you mistake Aaron Donald for somebody else? So he thought it was somebody else, and Aaron Donald happened to look like this other person. He had a beer bottle that he took a swing at, according to what Aaron Donald said, or Aaron Donald's lawyer said. So from the standpoint of he either made contact or bumped into him, what about this alleged victim? I mean, he did get the hell beat out of him. There's no doubt about that. But could there be criminal charges against the people that took care of, or is that defending yourself in a fight theory?
I mean, those, at least if you can act in defense of another person to some extent, but
that's 5 of them.
Yeah, but it's got to be proportional. If someone takes a swing at one person with a bottle, it doesn't. Well, I deal in extremes, right? This is the best way.
Right.
Someone took a swing at you with a bottle, Vasu, and I was standing by you, and we were out at the bar. I can't take a gun out and do something with a gun. That's not proportional. That's defending someone from personal bodily harm with deadly harm. And I don't know. And there are instances in the law where beating someone up that badly can be considered potentially, attempted murder or something like that. I saw this pile. They were beating this guy pretty good, kicking him and doing all sorts of things. So, I don't think that response was proportional, is what we would say in the law. So I Vazu, did you see that video of the MMA guy fighting the Oklahoma guy?
Yeah, I'm not a big MMA guy, but I notice stuff like that when it comes across because it was big. It was big time. It was all over. Speaking of Twitter, it was all over Twitter when I saw that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so for people that don't know, I had it on my feed, but it was essentially a fight in a bathroom. Two guys were pushing this MMA fighter. I'm sure they didn't know he was an MMA fighter. But the MMA fighter and his friend, also seemingly an MMA fighter, beat the living. I'll say S. Beat the living.
Yeah, I'll say it. Yeah.
I thought that there could have been criminal charges filed because pushing is very different than getting like a guillotine choke on the ground and getting choked out and needing stitches on your head. But yeah, I mean, you could see it both ways. I could definitely see a civil lawsuit being filed by this alleged victim. And same with the Oklahoma guy. I could see him suing those guys too. I don't think we've seen it yet, but statute of limitations is nowhere close to running.
All right, enough of the criminal stuff here. Vasu Vatapardhi here on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Charlie O, Casey Freelove on assignment. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live. Catch us on Facebook Live every Monday, Thursday, Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. The YouTube channel, the Stables Media YouTube channel, and my personal YouTube channel on Vasu Vatapardhi, where we have the live broadcast. You can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Our guest, Daniel Lust of the Garagos Law Firm, Conduct Detrimental Podcast. Reach him at Sports Law Lust and at Con Detrimental. You mentioned you liked our graphics last time, so I had this all prepared for you so that every time I said something, it would pop up automatically. So in case I talked too fast or people didn't understand, then they would figure out exactly how to find you. How's the podcast going, by the way, before I get to the next thing?
The podcast is good. We have just hit 50,000 lifetime downloads, so we're doing good over here. We don't have any fancy sponsors like you guys. We might need to talk offline so I can get these. But Vasu, we buried the lead. Can I give you my elevator pitch on the Super League so people?
Absolutely.
So, okay, let me prep.
Explain to people what the Super League is.
Right. Listen, I'm a pro over here. I wasn't going to just jump.
I got you.
I could jump in the deep end. I'm going to take you to the baby end. I'm going to take your hands. We do a little kicks with a little
waiting pool. Yeah, the waiting pool. I get it.
Okay, so and people will understand this. I am not a football fan. FUTBOL. I'm not a. I follow soccer. I played. Probably my best sport was soccer, but I never followed at a high level. Okay, so that said, there is something going on in the we'll say the soccer world. Mm-hmm. That is unlike anything that any sport has ever seen. So this will be a case study that will be studied in sports business books, sports law books, and spoken about sports bars for years to come. Essentially what's happened, and this is the best way I could give this to you. If in the NBA, the Lakers, the Knicks, the Bulls, the top three, the Miami Heat, I'm probably missing some other big high-level teams, but the Boston Celtics, the most storied teams in the league just said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to start our own league. It's going to be called the Super NBA League. No one else is invited. It's just going to be us, and we're going to play, in between when we play our normal games. I imagine the NBA would be pretty pissed off. I imagine other teams would be pissed off. Now, take this issue and move it over to international waters, where this Super League is pulling from the best and pulling from La Liga, the Spanish League, and the English Premier League. So 16, I think these are, they control 80% of the wins overall in the something called the Champions League, which I can. We're having a full podcast to.
Yeah.
The best teams in the world are joining a Super League, so they've basically pissed off every single soccer fan that they've started the Super League. There are protests going on with fans right now. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of England, is making a statement. There are lawsuits being filed to try to join this quote unquote Super League. It is a, let's use a word that we used before. It is a cluster F, Vasu, a cluster F, but a massive story for all fans of sports, law, business, television deals. It's a massive development.
Wow, I just, I don't even know where to go with that because the Super League, like I said, I'm not a big soccer guy either. I'm not a big FUTBOL either, but I do watch it, the World Cup, the Olympics, I guess. Locally, the whatever they call it. I still remember the days of the NASL, well before you were born, when Pele was playing. So it'll be interesting to see. All right, for the purposes of Make the Money and Run, let's get to the news of the week. Casey broke this last week. I'm sure you read about it. I don't know how much you guys talked about it on your show, but Arizona has passed a bill to legalize sports wagering off Indian reservations, and will start allowing wagers around the new year. They're going to get some kiosks, and I'm sure William Hill will be involved as well too. And they're going to get going around that time. The reason I bring that up is obviously we want it to be everywhere because we think people should be able to do whatever they want with their money as long as it's, well within reason type of thing. Don't blow your mortgage and all that other stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a show. But I broke it down. I got on Google because Google is good for everything. I broke it down. 20 states are legal now. 7 have bill passage. Utah, Idaho, Wisconsin. What the hell are you thinking? It helps your state revenue. It helps your state taxes. Utah, Idaho, Wisconsin, the only 3 with no legislation even on the books, and 20 have bills to be passed. What do you make of the Arizona? I don't know how much you read about it or that, but what do you make of the sports wagering industry starting to take shape here as far as getting into all 50 states?
So my podcast co-host is a guy by the name of Dan Wallach, who has been referred to by Darren Rovell as the sports betting guru. So even though I invite
him on next time.
Hey, listen, I can relax over here. Well, here's the thing, and which is why we have fun. Dan he helps craft sports betting legislation. He does some outside work for some companies you definitely 100% have heard of in the sports betting sphere. But Vasu, interestingly, Dan doesn't bet. Dan does not bet. So, maybe that gives him a little more credibility. Meanwhile,
sure.
I'm a consultant for all things illegal betting, right? No one's paying me for it. I'm just doing some independent research on it. But that's why you have me on, Vasu, because I'm people. I speak the language. So yes, this last week or two were very big. In addition to Arizona, Maryland also passed legislation, and my home state of New York passed legislation. So, I'm sure you guys hit on this last week, but why is this happening all of a sudden? For better or for worse, the pandemic has brought some bad things, but brought some good things. There's shortage of funds in various state legislations, and they've said, what better way to bring this? Let's legalize cannabis, and let's legalize sports betting. It's free money. Let's give the people what they want. So in our podcast in the past 2 months, right about 2 months, we had a senator on from Massachusetts and actually a senator on from New York to explain why it was taking so long to pass these things and why, what type of issues were hanging up these, I don't know really how to explain it, these bipartisan issues that everybody should want. So the short answer is that every politician wants to pass a version of this bill. Everyone wants to do it. So you're having infighting at the legislative level to get these things done. So even though maybe Arizona is very much in favor, and Vasu, you're saying, what are you doing? We should pass this thing. I'm sure every state wants to pass it, but these politicians kind of get in their own way, and I want to be the guy that passed the sports betting bill. No, I want to be the guy, because people see what happened, for example, an analogous scenario over in California, where Governor Newsom was the first guy that signed into law the Fair Pay to Play Act to get college athletes paid. And it's going to look pretty good for Newsom. You can say a lot of bad things about Newsom, which my boss is from California, so he is no short of maybe not so kind things to say about Newsom. The sportsman in me says, you know what, the guy got athletes paid. He kind of set that in motion. So that's why this thing's being delayed. Maybe there's some complicated issues of, separately what's more important, like an education bill or the sports betting bill. I get that part. But the part of people kind of, having too many cooks in the kitchen, I don't respect that part. Just find ways to get it done.
That's what I say. Find ways to get it done. Vasu Vatapati, Daniel Lust here, a sports attorney from the Garagos Law Firm. A few more minutes here with Daniel Lust. So I know a lot of people that invest in the cannabis business that don't smoke. So it's the same principle. They're not giving that money back either that they're making. So let me ask you. I'm glad you brought up the senator, because I didn't know you interviewed him, but I'm sure you're going to listen to the podcast next time you have him on. And I'll get a hold of Daniel Wallach too, or maybe you can help me with that too. Maybe you can give me some advice.
Watch it, Vasu. Watch
it. What does he have any idea what's holding up? Just for me personally, what's holding up California, and what do you think, or what did the senator say the common issue is in terms of who runs the sports gaming industry? I've had some friends and some VCs out here in Palo Alto that tell me that the government is deciding whether to let the state assembly run it or the lottery to run it, or different avenues of the government to run it. Is that kind of what you're saying, of who wants credit and who doesn't want credit, or is it just a matter of trying to figure out what the best avenue is for to get this back?
I mean, I can speak. So the senators, we had one on from New York, one from Massachusetts, and I don't think Wallach could tell you some of those answers because of his individual conflict. So so I know, because we had the New York. It's actually kind of funny, just from you can imagine this. This is the part that I think maybe your listeners will appreciate. we had a Senator Eric Lesser on who worked for Obama and the Obama administration. So went to Harvard Law School, and he's in the conversation, right? And Eric Lesser is a brilliant guy. And the other end of the equation, we had a guy named Senator Joe Adabo, who didn't go to Harvard Law School. He went to a law school, but it was not Harvard. It was somewhere below.
Shockingly, Dan, I don't know if you know this, more people didn't go to Harvard than did.
Right. But Joe Adabo was probably hanging out at the horse tracks with me and my dad.
Sure.
That's what he was probably doing.
The education of life.
Right. I met somebody from Yonkers. I'm from New York. Yonkers Raceway is a harness track that's about 15 minutes from my house. And I learned how to bet on exactas, trifectas, superfectas, daily doubles. I speak the language. Mm-hmm. So you have people like Joe Adabo, who we'll say are on the ground, and you have people like Eric Lesser, who are really influential, but he's kind of like a blue bud in an Ivy League. So you have to balance those two versions in the room. So why? You have people probably close to the Adabo side that are saying, let's just get this done. Let's allow sports betting in some sense. And then you have someone like Senator Lesser, whose bill, which may be controversially, maybe it's the reason his bill is not going to get passed so quickly. He says, well, in my bill, I don't want to allow anyone to bet on college sports. And why is that? Because he's saying, it's a similar reason you don't want college sports to be impacted. They're pure. So it's a substantive issue as much as it is just like prioritizing education laws versus, sports betting laws or paying athletes laws. It's, if we're going to do this, we have to do it the right way. And then for both of those guys, there's an issue of job creation. So if you're going to have, 12 different venues where you can bet on sports, you're going to have 3, or you're going to have just mobile betting. It's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of different issues involved, and all these different plans are going to have different versions of it. So, yeah, I'd love, right, like if they just announce, and I think everyone would love this, hey, we are going to legalize sports betting by X date, and then we'll figure out the specifics between now and then. I just don't like that for each legislative, session, for better or for worse, maybe basically half the country just keeps kicking the can, and we don't really know as the general public where they stand, yes or no. I mean, I can tell you most states are going to pass, most if not all are going to pass some type of sports betting legislation. It's just that other states and a lot of states have other issues that are more important. So I went, Vasu, just as a story, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. I went on I did one of my few television appearances I've done with this beautiful head of hair I have over here, going any number of directions as of today. But I read the comments section on one of these ones that I was posted to YouTube, and it was about the Supreme Court case with getting athletes paid. And I looked at the comment section. Comments weren't that I did good or bad. It was, why the hell are we talking about this and we're not talking about voter fraud and the new voting law? So there are people in the country that are not me and you, and it's not the listeners of this show, that don't flying fuck if sports betting is legalized or not. They don't care. Right. And maybe they're right. But for us, that's very high on our priority list.
I agree with you. And I tell people the same thing. I go, each person has their own importance, but don't jump into other people's conversations if it doesn't interest you. Just like you don't want us to jump into your conversations or your ideas from that standpoint. Like if I took an English class, I was in college. I remember I was talking to the professor about the San Francisco Giants, which we'll get to in a second before I let you go. Talking about the San Francisco Giants, a professor friend of mine, and the woman in the classroom said, why are we talking about this? And I'm going like, no, we're having a private conversation. If it doesn't interest you, you don't have to include yourself in the conversation, to which she did not appreciate the comment, but I didn't appreciate her jumping in to the conversation. So it's kind of similar to what you were saying. All right, enough legalese here. You can catch Daniel Lust on his podcast, Conduct Detrimental. He and Dan Wallach do a great job with that. Do you have a day that you drop the new podcast every week, or is it just random days, or just download and subscribe?
Usually we drop it on Wednesday. It's available Thursday, but we tell you to subscribe because we might have episodes like we did today that are an emergency. And the Super League episode, I had a call to arms. I said, sports lawyers assemble. And I got Vasu, you'll be impressed. In about 2 hours.
I'm already impressed.
I assembled a lot of people who are far smarter than me, hard stop, and also much smarter than me when it comes to football. So we had some professors. We had someone that wrote, watch this, Vasu. We had someone that wrote the book on European sports law and breakaway leagues, which is the term for people leaving, teams leaving leagues. She wrote this in 2015. And now this book, like, I don't know. I didn't write a thesis. I'm sure. Did you write a thesis, Vasu?
I did not. I did a business project.
So I'm sure no one has read that business project in about 20 years. Accurate?
Probably not.
People are reading this book because she knew 5, 6 years,
Yeah.
7 at the time that this would be a story. So credit to her. Much smarter than I, but I'm happy we had her on the podcast.
Some of the best CEOs in the world are people who hire people smarter than them to make them look good, because that's the way to do it, because you always know that there's always going to be somebody smarter than you. All right, let's get to a little baseball talk here. Baseball about 3 weeks in. It's my main sport I cover, obviously, with the Fox Sports stuff that I do. The San Francisco Giants are 9-6 with about a team batting average of about 210. For those that don't know, Daniel Lust is a San Francisco Giants fan all the way from the East Coast. He and his dad used to take a trip out here. I don't know if they'll be able to do it this year, but probably next year or the years to come, we'll see him out at Oracle Park. It's Oracle Park now, by the way, in case you hadn't known that. But what do you make of the San Francisco Giants? Despite their woes hitting wise, I didn't think they were going to be good hitting, but their starting pitching is pretty good, and they're 9-6 with a team batting average of about 210, and their defense is outstanding. And Jake McGee has been great. So, what's your way too early? They're going to the World Series take on the San Francisco Giants, Dan?
I mean, listen, they're doing it with pitching. It's names that people will remember. It's kind of, I guess the best way to phrase it's kind of like a ragtag bunch. Cueto's the only guy that's been around the organization for a little bit, but even Cueto, he's had his injury concerns. He hasn't really been on the field. He's been, I guess somewhat of a disappointment with the Giants. He just hasn't really been on the field as much as he needed to, but they're doing it with pitching, which has been the Giants' MO for a while. Clutch hitting and really, really good pitching and a strong bullpen. So Cueto, Gausman, Anthony DeSclafani, Aaron Sanchez, all guys with basically sub-3 ERA. And you know what? You can hit 210 if you have pitching that's really lights out like that. The problem, you're asking me my long-term, this is one of the first years where I did not put a bet on the Giants to win the World Series. I do not have that much faith in them. I did not expect them to be 9-6 at this stage of the game, but I'll take it. Gausman, DeSclafani, and Sanchez, they do have pedigree somewhere. Sanchez was a top prospect. Gausman was. DeSclafani has kind of been he's been a solid pitcher for a while. I don't think anyone expects these pristine ERAs to hold up the whole year. If they do, if the Giants pitching staff has found something in them, which the Giants pitching staff is one of the best in baseball, then this could be legitimate. They could be hovering around 500, make a real shot at the playoffs. And then, when the Giants make it to November, Giants are pretty dangerous. So I'm liking the team. Call me crazy. I'm liking the team.
I'll give you my take here because I cover them during the week. As people know now, I cover the Giants during the week, living in the Bay Area, and then I travel on the weekends or when I'm allowed to travel for the games of the week. So I get to see a lot of teams. But as far as the Giants, I loved Anthony DeSclafani. You can't pitch in Cincinnati. That's a bandbox. He was going to do much better no matter. As soon as he left Cincinnati, he was going to do better wherever he had. You just can't get that kind of stuff. And he's a Jersey boy. You should appreciate that too as well. Yeah. In fact, they've got Frank Sinatra playing in the bullpen every time he warms up. Now that's his request to the speakers on Frank Sinatra every time he warms up in the bullpen. Aaron Sanchez, before he had his arm surgeries, was really good in Toronto. He had a heavy sinker, about 95-mile-an-hour sinker. And Jake McGee was on the Dodgers last year, world champions, and he's come out and been lights out right now. They've been affected a little bit by the injections of the vaccines. So once they get over the side effects, they'll be right there back with that. But I have high hopes for your San Francisco Giants, a lot of it because I'm around them and the organization's good and they treat me well, and I really root for them, except for those 19 times a year when they play the Dodgers. So if they go 143-19, the Giants will be happy, and I'll be happy that the 19 are against the Dodgers that they lose anyway. But that'll be a good record anyway if they ever go 143-19. So we'll go with that. All right, so I think we hit everything. We hit Deshaun Watson. We hit Aaron Donald. We'll talk about Aldon Smith as this case comes on. We even hit the Super League, which I'm going to have to do a little bit of reading on. Any more news on Top Shot? Any more investments, non-fungible transactions that I got to get to you with at all?
What if I told you that you didn't need to read anything on the Super League? You just listen to my podcast. I did all the research for you, Vasu. I will.
What about the NFTs? Any new news on the NFTs?
Yeah, so no news on the NFTs other than since my last episode. If anyone's really into the NFT Top Shot market, the packs.
Starting to get there.
In order to get packs, it's still a process, the same process you do to get shoes. You have to sign up for the drop ahead of time, all that fun stuff. The overall, we'll say the return value on these cards or moments, whatever you want to call them, has dropped vociferously as other athletes and other leagues have started to get into the NFT space. So it's becoming a much more crowded space. You would have hoped that the Top Shot market would have been kind of immune as the first one there, but it looks like they're taking a hit as anyone from, Pat Mahomes to Gronkowski to Damian Lillard, they're all coming up with special NFTs. So yeah, I think the market's becoming a little saturated. So it's being borne out in the prices.
I was thinking about this the other day, and part of the reason, because we had talked about this before, was when Steph Curry passed Wilt Chamberlain last week for all-time Warriors leading scorer. I thought that was a highlight that would be out there. But you're right, with the fact that the athletes are going after their own highlights and they can afford to put the money down for these NFTs, it's going to be tough for the average consumer, to be able to get in. And get into this. So it might have already, the high point might have already happened, and who knows, maybe down the road it will be a high point at all. Hey, I really appreciate the time as always. Daniel Lust, our sports attorney, Garagos Law Firm, Conduct Detrimental Podcast. You can reach him on the internet at Twitter and Instagram at Sports Law Lust, and then the podcast is at Con Detrimental. Always have fun with you, Dan. I appreciate the time. We'll talk soon. And next time Casey and Charlie come on, and maybe we'll let them talk a little bit too.
I like it when it's just me and you. That's fine.
All right, Dan. Well, we're the only two that I don't know. Casey and Charlie might have covered their ears for all the swear words. I don't know. We might have blown them off from that. So who knows?
Maybe we'll see. But Vasu, always a pleasure coming on with you.
Always a pleasure, Dan. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
You got it.
All right, Vasu Vataparty back with you here. Casey Freeleft, Charlie O on assignment. We will take a 30-second break, and we'll be back in 30 seconds. A little NBA and MLB to catch up on before we get out of here. Vasu Vataparty here, the Make the Money and Run podcast for Monday, April 19th, 2021. How fast April's gone by, 2.5 weeks into the baseball season. You can see the ticker with the NBA lines at the bottom. You can reach us Monday, Thursdays, Fridays on Facebook Live, the Stables Media YouTube page, and my YouTube page as well, live. If you miss any of the live broadcasts, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, specifically Apple and Spotify are the two that I recommend. Thanks to everybody on Facebook for the comments as well. Got a little baseball to talk about. We told you about the Red Sox beating the White Sox today on Patriots Day in Boston, the Boston Marathon going on. I don't know if I don't have any winners yet, but let's get to the National League here a little bit. Some of the lines we have today. St. Louis, a slight favorite at Washington with Jack Flaherty and Joe Ross. Kevin Gausman, surprisingly, the Giants don't hit, and Philadelphia's played pretty well. Chase Anderson, who used to be with the Brewers, coming off rotator cuff surgery. Kevin Gausman, a slight favorite at 111, 8.5 the total. And then probably the game of the night for me, Milwaukee and San Diego. Both teams playing pretty well. The Padres had a tough weekend with the Dodgers. The Brewers lost in extra innings yesterday. They took 2 out of 3 from the Pirates over the weekend, and they've been on a pretty much a good roll here. Joe Musgrove, who threw the no-hitter a week ago Friday, goes up against Brandon Woodruff, whose ERA is about 1 and having a great year. Kind of a high favorite for Joe Musgrove there. We'll let you know what we think about that in the picks. I have Casey's picks for today as well. You can see the NBA lines at the bottom as well. Let's move on to the American League games we had. We told you about Boston and Chicago. Kansas City Royals, they took care of Toronto. They took care of Toronto 3 out of 4 over the weekend. They're a slight favorite against the Tampa Bay Rays. 109 for Danny Duffy and John Fleming, a left-hander for Tampa Bay. You may not have heard of him, but he throws 95 miles an hour, and he's got a straight change that's unbelievable. And he was very instrumental out of the bullpen for the Tampa Bay Rays. A 109 favorite for Kansas City. By the way, don't forget the Tampa Bay Rays just came off sweeping the New York Yankees in New York, the 9th straight series that the Rays have won over the Yankees, not including the American League American League Division Series last year in San Diego. And then the LA Angels are off to they're a funny team to figure out. You don't know which Angels team you're going to get because they've got all those name guys in there. They can hit right now. Rendon on the injured list. Anthony Rendon out for the next 10 days. Dylan Bundy is a minus 220 favorite. Pretty high in baseball to lay minus $2 odds when you're not like a super team like the Dodgers are or the Padres are or even last year when the Yankees were. And Koei Arihara for the Texas Rangers, Japanese pitcher, going to make his second start for the Rangers in this season. The total there, 8.5 down in Anaheim. Remember, the Angels haven't played in 2 days. They had the Minnesota Twins over the weekend, and Saturday and Sunday's games were postponed due to contact tracing with the Minnesota Twins. The Twins were scheduled to come into Oakland and play tonight, Monday night. That game's been postponed, scheduled to a doubleheader, provided they get all the protocols and all the vaccine clearances. I'm sorry, not the vaccine clearances, the COVID clearances, all taken apart at that point. So those are the two games going on in the American League. And then the one interleague game we have tonight is the LA Dodgers. They're about a $2 favorite at Seattle. Seattle's played really well. They're in first place right now in the American League West, or they're right there with the Angels. The American League West. Justice Sheffield, you may recognize the Sheffield name. He's the nephew of Gary Sheffield, the former slugger, Major League Baseball slugger, 480 plus home runs. They're hosting the Dodgers tonight after the Dodgers took 2 out of 3. Seattle lost 2 out of 3 to the Astros over the weekend. They took 2 out of 3 from the Astros over the weekend after the win yesterday, 7-2. Houston struggling a little bit. Houston has Altuve, Bregman, Maldonado, Alvarez out on COVID protocol. They'll be gone for 10 days. Dodgers a $2 favorite. Dustin May going, the big carrot top redhead pitcher for the Dodgers, was successful. Was very good in the playoffs last year for the Dodgers down the stretch as well. 8.5 is the total. Don't know what kind of night it is in Seattle. You want to check the weather report there, whether they're playing with the roof open or the roof closed. Dave Sims, if you're out there in Seattle land watching this, maybe you can send us a message on Facebook. Let me know how the weather is in Seattle right now. But as you can see, the NBA lines are at the bottom as well. So the baseball stuff we're talking about. Let's move on to the NBA. Let's NBA news and notes to go with as we continue to put the baseball lines on at the bottom so you can keep track of it. Got any questions about that? You can reach us at mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach us on our Facebook pages. You can reach us on our Instagram pages as well too. Casey, Charlie, and I all have individual pages. We also have a Make the Money and Run Facebook page as well too. So you can reach us anywhere, and on Twitter at MTMAR Podcast, at V Party Sports, at Charlie O'Malley 1320, and at Casey Freelove on Twitter as well. All right, NBA notes from the weekend since we were on. Utah won a game against Indiana on Friday. That was the noon game that we had here on the West Coast because they had an early game on Saturday in Los Angeles. They lose Saturday to the Lakers. They had a lead at the end. They gave up a tying bucket to Dennis Schroeder, lost in overtime. Philadelphia 76ers beat the Clippers on Friday night. They pushed it a -3. Joel Embiid had another great game, and they play the Warriors tonight. That's one of the better games on TV tonight on ESPN. Golden State blew a double-digit lead to Boston. It's hard to take the Warriors seriously because they're in the 7 to 10 area range right now. They're 9th right now, but you can't blow double-digit leads. And they had the Celtics on the run, but they let them get back in. And defensively, Golden State did not play well, and Boston was able to come up with a victory. Brooklyn split the weekend. They won on Friday night, and then they lost yesterday to Miami Heat in Miami. Dame Lillard did not play for the Blazers yesterday, and it showed because Charlotte beat them. Charlotte not very good, but they are 7th in the East. They don't have players either right now. A lot of their injuries, of course, no LaMelo Ball. He's gone for the rest of the year, but they're playing as well as they can. They're doing as well as they can to stay in that race out of that 7-10 spot. The Clippers blow Minnesota out on Sunday after their loss Friday. That was the easiest bet on the board. -12 last night for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They had the lead up to 38, and the game ended up at 19. How about the Dallas Mavericks? Can't figure out the Dallas Mavericks. Casey's a Sacramento fan. Casey and Charlie are both in the Sacramento area. It pains me to watch them play defense, but apparently they stopped Doncic. They stopped Porzingis. They stopped the Mavericks last night on offense. They were able to get a 17-point win in Dallas. They were an 8.5-point underdog, was Sacramento, and the Mavericks end up losing to Sacramento. Toronto got a win over Oklahoma City. They pushed on a 6-point line with Oklahoma City. No Kyle Lowry, no Pascal Siakam, but they still get the 112-106 victory over Oklahoma City. Toronto stayed under in that game. That was one of my picks at 219.5. It stayed at 218. No last-second bucket to beat me for the first time in a while. Can't imagine how many more last-second buckets, ninth-inning home runs go against everybody more than they do go with people. Anyway, Toronto, the win compiled with Chicago losing over the weekend moves Toronto into the 10th spot. So now they're in the play-in series, and that's significant because the 7 to 10 teams will play in the play-in tournament as we move forward down towards the playoffs. Chicago will be out without Zach LaVine, 27.5 points a game, the best player on that team. I know they traded for Vucevic from Orlando, but 27.5 points a game is a lot to lose, and three-point shooting. But Zach LaVine will be out for about 2 weeks, and that's going to hurt them. down the stretch, and that could be fait accompli for the Chicago Bulls as far as not making the playoffs at all. We've got some NBA notes, some other NBA notes. The Phoenix Suns are going to go into Milwaukee tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks, you got to check that line. It's 2.5. Let's get to the lines here as we go on here a little bit as I find the NBA lines here. There we go. The NBA lines, Cleveland is 3 at Detroit, 213.5. There's only 7 games of the 9 up here. We don't have lines out there waiting for injury reports at the time of the taping of our show. 213.5 for Cleveland, Detroit. Why bet on that game? No impact either way. Philadelphia is a 9-point favorite over Golden State, 223.5 the total. Which Warriors team's going to show up? Nobody's playing better than Steph Curry right now, but Joel Embiid, even though Jokic is getting a lot of MVP run, Joel Embiid, my MVP candidate still, because he means so much to that team. Boston 6.5-point favorite versus those Bulls we talked about. That's kind of low, especially at home, 215.5. Boston did come back from 13 down, 15 down to the Warriors on Saturday night. How about this? This is the first time of the year Washington Wizards are a double-digit favorite over the Oklahoma City Thunder. Can you figure that out? 232 the total, not surprising because Washington goes up and down the court. But 12.5 points versus Oklahoma City, OKC on a back-to-back after losing to Toronto yesterday. Talked about the Bucks and the Phoenix Suns, 2.5, 234. Check the injury list because you want to make sure Antetokounmpo is playing. The Greek Freak has missed a few games. Phoenix number 2 in the West right now. They had a tough game last week, but they came back and won. They're still right there with Utah as far as the top seed in the NBA Western Conference. Then Denver, you don't know whether to feel sorry for Denver or not. Jamal Murray out for the rest of the year with a torn ACL. They're still not losing games. They're playing well. 7-point favorite over Memphis tonight, 226.5. The Memphis Grizzlies, you all know about John Morant. You all know about their run and gun style. 226.5 might be low for this game. But without the scoring capabilities of Murray, Denver's going to have to rely on Jokic to get all the points for them as well. And then in a second game of 2, the Utah Jazz stay in L.A. They're going to play the Lakers again at the Staples Center tonight. This time Donovan Mitchell, who got hurt on Friday, played a little bit on Saturday. 7-point favorite after losing in overtime to the Lakers on Saturday. They're a 7-point favorite with the Lakers at L.A., 214.5. So those are the NBA lines for today. Let's get to the picks, as we said. Once again, thanks to everybody on Facebook Live, Staples Media YouTube page, my YouTube page, Vassy Vada Party. You can get us there at that Monday, Thursday, Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can download and subscribe. All right, no picks for Charlie, so I'm going to get to Casey's picks real quick here. Casey is going to take the Philadelphia Phillies tonight. They're a slight underdog. We talked about Chase Anderson. Now coming off his arm injuries the last couple of years with the Milwaukee Brewers. Philadelphia at home played really well. They beat St. Louis 2 out of 3 over the weekend. It's going to be a tough ride for the Giants, but Kevin Gausman, if anybody can do it, Kevin Gausman can stop them. Boston Celtics, -6.5 over the Bulls. We talked about that already. Seems kind of low to me. I think that's a good play for Casey. In fact, I have that on mine as well, too. And then the Lakers in Utah, under 214. Not sure about that. They did stay under. The overtime took it over on Saturday. But Casey thinks they're going to go under tonight. For my picks real quick, in baseball, Milwaukee. I talked about the Joe Musgrove no-hitter, but Brandon Woodruff, a 1.0 something ERA, plus 146 seems good odds to me as an underdog. Philadelphia, I'm going with the Philadelphia Phillies as well as a home underdog. Tampa Bay Rays just got done sweeping the New York Yankees. I know the Yankees aren't very good. They don't play a lot of defense, but to go into New York and still beat them 3 times in a row and 9 series over. Kansas City is still a top team in the Central right now, as of right now. But I just got to think that the weekend for the Rays they've had kind of brought them all together. And I think as a slight even money 101 favorite, I think Tampa Bay comes out with the victory behind John Fleming, the left-hander. If you haven't seen him pitch and you're a fan of baseball, watch John Fleming pitch for Tampa Bay. I'm going with the Boston Celtics as well, too, 6.5 over the Chicago Bulls. The only NBA game. I haven't decided about Milwaukee or Phoenix yet. Check back Instagram or the Facebook page for any later picks. I want to see if Antetokounmpo is playing and the injury list. 7 of the 9 games that we posted are here on the NBA lines. The other 2 are due to injuries as well. And 2 hockey games for me tonight. San Jose, Las Vegas, under 6. Las Vegas playing as well as anybody in the NHL. Tampa Bay, Carolina, a great matchup. Both teams leading the Eastern Conference right now. Both teams leading their division, -120. All right, that's going to do it for the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vassy Battle Party. Charlie O. Casey Freelove on assignment. We'll be back Thursday at 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. If you miss any of the Facebook broadcasts, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Have a great afternoon and good luck. Take care, everybody.